everybody, and welcome to another Houdini tutorial. I'm sorry there hasn't been a lot of updates recently. The past 3 weeks has been kind of crazy. I switched into a different visual effects company, and that caused some chaos in my life. Good chaos, not bad chaos, but definitely it was a move for the better, and I'm quite happy of where I am right now, and hopefully in the future you'll be seeing some future things that I'll be working on. And if you follow me on any social media sites, you probably already know where I am. Putting that aside, we can dive back into tutorials and I can post some more updates on the channel. So here we go. I thought it'd be nice to cover some more basic systems today, simply because jumping into what I'm doing now, a lot of the things that they have given me are quite basic particle systems, but building on top of particle systems. And it's come to my realization that if you can't quickly memorize the basic popnet or dot networks in Houdini and understand how they work, then you're gonna have a harder time going forward into harder simulations. So I thought it might be good today to cover popnets, proper procedure of using them, and then maybe diving into VBDs a little bit more and discovering what we can do with them. So let's go. So to start, I'm just going to create a basic geometry. I'm going to create that as a particle system. You can name this whatever you like, but today's going to be some basic R&D, so we're going to just practice building whatever we need to build. And like usual, I'm going to have my basic ambient light, gonna go for an environment light, add a distant light, and then for fun I'm gonna switch back to the regular lighting in Houdini because I'm not gonna really need that right now. So I'm gonna just save my file because my computer recently has been crashing. It's probably at the end of its life cycle. Let's start with some basic geometry. I have some geometry on file, so I'm just going to bring that up. And something that you do recognize in visual effects is that any model you get that you modify for your visual effects, you're probably going to have to edit in some way, whether or not you're going to be subdividing it, removing sections of it, or just remeshing the entire thing. You will always be having to edit your geometry in order to make your simulation work. So don't feel too bad if, let's say, I'm going to be using a statue for today. If I have to edit this statue in some way, don't feel too bad about that. Already you can tell it's way too big. And usually when your geometry is way too big, you can rescale it using the transform SOP. So I'm going to go back down to here, rescale it. It's on its side as usual, so I'm also going to rotate it. Boom. Save. And I'm going to add a null as my geometry out. So if I ever need to reference this geometry, I can later on. Always capitalize your nulls. So when, let's say, you're operating in a different object node, you can, and let's say if you have a object merge, you can find your nulls more easily because as soon as you capitalize something in Houdini, it places that particular null or transfer SOP or etc. at the top of the node list when you're merging something in. So that's quite useful. I always recommend doing that. I think to start, I'm definitely going to make a popnet. I'm going to make a popnet. And I'm going to put that on the side for now. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to edit my geometry in a sense where I can use it better. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to attribute VOP this. So we're operating a little bit out of sync today, which just pay attention. And if you're scrolling through the video and you have audio off, just be aware of that till after this point in time. So I'm going to dive into my attribute VOP. If you go like that, if I'm clicking L on my keyboard, it will adjust the layout. So what I'm going to first do is I'm actually going to adjust my point position. If you hit Y on your keyboard, you can slice, which is always useful. So I'm going to point my point position into my color, and already you can see some color values adjusting themselves. So basically what it's doing, it's creating almost like a bounding box of color, and you could but you can notice at the bottom it's sectioning the color into quadrants. So it is basing the color on the point position of the geometry in the scene. But we don't really want that. So I'm going to create a fit range. I'm going to put that down. can notice the color changing a little bit. And no, not turbulence. I'm going to go anti-aliasing. I think that was going to have the best results. And you can create a noise map. Interesting, right? I actually sort of like that one a little bit more. And you can see what the bit range is doing. So you're mapping it from 0 to 1. I may play with this a little bit more. I'm not sure if I'm happy for what I'm about to do. I'm going to just play around with my point position. So you can see already, the more you play with your point position and remap it, that's what's going to happen. In this particular case, I actually sort of like that. So let's work with that. After my attribute VOP, I'm going to add an attribute blur. And basically what I'm doing now is I'm blurring the attributes, not the point position, but the color. So you can see that it has just blended right into the statue itself. Oh yeah, with all my geometry that I import into Houdini, I always put down a normal SOP, just so I know that the normals are facing the correct way and where I want them to be. So that does help with shading in the end. So now that our attribute blur is down, I'm going to put another color node directly before it, and it's called paint. And what paint is going to allow me to do is actually paint particular colors onto my object. So you can see a foreground color, and you can also background color. So if I was to apply to all, it would suddenly go all black, and I don't really want that. I want to paint more of the white color, and you're going to see in a sec what we're going to do with that. I'm just going to paint something down to see if this is exactly what I want. I might have to subdivide my mesh a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go subdivide. There we go. Now you can already see the more if you were to edit your mesh after putting down color attributes, the color attributes are going to shift along with your mesh. So just be aware of that. It's always a good idea to make sure your mesh is where you want it to be before you start editing your attributes. So I'm going to start painting. In this particular case, I'm trying to put down a pattern of where I'd like my particles to go. And the more color I lay down, the more or less particles will be there. And in this particular case, the closer the color is to white, the more particles will be emitted. So I don't really want too many particles in the back. I probably would like some particles to wrap around her head. So I'm going to go something like that. And again, it's all based on your geometry. And I'm only doing this because there is, I just want particles to be in a custom area of my geometry. If I wanted the particles to be emitted just randomly all over the character, that's what the attribute VOP is for. If I'm painting, it's for custom placement of my particles. So this is pretty good. This is also going to take a while, so I might jump forward in the video. Alright, so I have my color attributes placed down where I currently would like them. And now I'm going to connect that to my PopNet. So actually, we're going to jump ahead to our PopNet, and as you can see, something just happened where a bunch of black dots appeared. And don't panic if you see that. What you need to do is you need to hit D on your keyboard, go to Display Options, go to Geometry, and instead of displaying the sprites, turn that off. And you should be alright. So in this case, it's showing the instant guides. We want to turn that off. We need to turn off the guide here. And yeah, as you can see, it's not really generating any points from our color. So we need to also change that. We need to generate it from the emission attribute, which is the color in this case. So if you press play, you can see that happen, which is great, but we don't really have any movement. So we need to create something more interesting. I want to try using a pop curve force. And this is going to get fun. But it's all dependent on how we do it. Is we're going to create a curve. Now, if we jump into curve, you don't see anything. You can create a polygon, NURBS, Bezier. If you have a QL plugin, there is a curve that you can use that does logarithmic curves, and then you could. I think that would be preferable in this case, but I'm actually having a problem loading up the QL plugins. So I will link them below in the description. You can check them out as long as a link to this geometry if you'd like to use it. But other than that, we're going to plug that into the second input. I'm also going to double check something. Cool. I'm going to keep that over there for now because we might explore that. But I'm going to switch from a perspective viewport into the right viewport. So already this is sort of changed. Now you can see my mouse is changed as well, and that's for drawing the curve. If that has not appeared, what you need to do is put your mouse over into your viewport and hit enter on your keyboard, and then your mouse should change. If that doesn't happen, probably check it out. So press enter for selection. You need to have your node selected and draw a random curve. Enter. Random enough for you. But if we switch into the perspective viewport, you notice that it's a tiny little thing compared to our geometry. And plus it's kind of in the wrong position. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a transform. Probably going to scale it up a little bit. Probably too big. Push it up to there. A little bit higher. Kind of just want it intersecting with my character. I'm probably going to rotate it just for fun. So now we have a curve. What we can also do is we can resample it. And what that's going to do is we're going to add more points. So if we switch back and forth, you can see less points, more points. In this case, I don't really want too much, just enough to move the curve. Change my layout a little bit. Point jitter. And you can see already it's messing up my curve a little bit. Bit disjointed. You can choose on which axis you'd like it. And you can use p-scale, but since we don't have that attribute, I wouldn't use it right now. So, what do we want to do next? I would say, maybe adjust this. Yeah, that works. But in this case, I don't think I'm going to use a curve intersect. I might convert this to a poly. I don't need too many divisions in it. I think that works for what we need right now. But I'm going to use a Boolean. Double check that I'm using this right. Perfect. That's what I want. I'm also going to go back here, add another null before the polywire, just so we can say that's our original curve. And I'll put this to the side. Also make a null that says Boolean ouch. course I spelled Boolean wrong. It's okay. You can do that. So, what should I do? What I'm going to do is replug this into that now. So that's going to do something else later, but we'll come back to that. So we'll go to our popnet. Again, we can't really see our curve anymore. What happened to it, right? Who knows? So we need to go to our pop curve first, and instead of doing this from the SOP, we need to take it to the second context geometry. And now we can see our curve. It's a bit too big, so what we're going to do is just turn down the max influence radius, take it back from the beginning, and if we hit play, it's going to take a while. But this is what's going to happen. Where it intersects is where the particles are going to get picked up by the force. In this particular case, I don't really want that. So we're going to go back to our Boolean. And you notice that I've picked up where it intersects with our geometry. So I'm going to use that to place that curve down. So I'm going to go to add. Might go up here and create an attribute, which in this particular case is going to be P scale. I'm going to go back to my add and try that attribute and see what happens. And it's picking up the P scale attribute. Cool, right? And you can close it off if you like. I might resample that. I'm going to go copy to points. Go back up to my P scale and probably scale that down a little bit more. Cool. Sorry about that, my computer crashed. So, I've decided on a different route for this. So we have our copy to points over there. We're going to definitely plug in our curve out here. And plug it into there. Go to a popnet. And we can see where our max influence of radius is. We are going to scale that up a little bit more. I'm going to turn the follow scale to about a 3, the orbit scale to 0, and the suction scale to 0.5. So already you can see that our particles are doing something. Whether or not that's what we want them to do, I think I would like them to die off a little bit. I don't like how they're following too much. I'm going to play around with that. Put down the follow. I think what I'm going to do is add a pop wind. Going to turn down the swirl size. Probably also the pop input to about 500. Turn this down to 5 for now. And I think that's good enough for our intents and purposes right this current moment. So that's what our particles are going to look like. That's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a trail. And you may be wondering why I'm not caching anything out yet. I like living on the edge. I don't know about you, but that's just me. I'm going to turn down my trail, or up my trail. Turn this to maybe 23. You can see as we scroll through our trail, it's a little bit finicky to narrow down what you'd like your trail length to be. Might keep this at a 1. That looks pretty good. So now I am going to cache it out. Going down to File, go there, put particle, cache out. Probably go to my desktop, go to my geo. I'm going to overwrite this one. It wasn't too good. It didn't turn out too good. And plus the file kind of got corrupted, so it's not really leading to any other object path or file path right now, so I'll just use that one. Again, it's getting a little bit antsy at me, going meh, meh, meh. I'm going to put that over there. And file cache. Load from disk. Once again, very antsy at me. Accept. And save to disk. In background, it wants me to save, and that's always a good idea. So let's erase and replace. And open scheduler so we can see what's going on while we work, which is always really great. And because it is a particle system and a low amount of particles, it is going to render out very fast. But I always do this after a trail. I might actually add a time shift directly before my trail, because I do find sometimes I get this wobble after using the trail node, which makes my particles look like they're wobbling a little bit. So if I do want a moving simulation in the future, that's probably a good idea. Save. Erase and replace. And I always like to turn on clear completed jobs in the scheduler, so when I'm done, it's not there anymore and it's confirmed that it's done. So what do we have? We have a lot of particles. Do we know what we want to do with them? Probably not. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go VDB from particles. Now, before I even press down on that, I'm going to make this very, very clear. You should probably add a particle p-scale attribute. So we have a p-scale over here, and I don't really want that to interfere with my p-scale on my particles. So I'm going to go to my geometry spreadsheet, and I'm going to look at it. And make sure p-scale. You can also Google p-scale like this. And boom, boom, boom. I don't see any p-scale, so I'm good to go. But you do have to make sure that your geometry attributes do not conflict with each other. So here. And when we turn this on, we should get something. Pretty cool, right? They're a bit big, but you notice that it's a lot more controlled than if I had just randomly dived right into the VBD. I'm going to turn minimus radius and voxels down a little bit. And you may be noticing this error and you're going, why am I getting this error? It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, it's from the minimal radius and voxels. If it's bigger than your point radius scale, you will get an error. So keep it lower than your point radius scale. So I'm going to go like this. That looks very monstrous-like. I like it. I'm going to go convert VDB. I'm going to go VDB smooth first. Let's smooth everything out. It's very monster-like, but I don't really like the shape. So what we might do is convert VDB to polygon soup. And now we have polygons. But when I told you beforehand, I don't really like the shape. It's very clear that they are circle-like. So I am going to save that. I'm going to go up here to my popnet. I'm going to attribute create. Put in there. Jump up here. Cool. So I'm actually going to, now that I'm just looking for my attribute, which was in this particular case, age. So I'm going to attribute promote age. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that on the side for now because I want to make sure that even through my file cache, age is still existing. So it's not. I'm going to go there. That happens sometimes, be careful of it. No. Okay, we're going to have to do this a different way. So I'm just going to add a point of up and down. What I might do here, transfer some attributes. That's interesting, right? Didn't expect that, right? So p-scale. Let me see if there's any before and after. Not really. Might just delete that. Sometimes Houdini is a little bit finicky in the sense that interesting. It is copying my color. It isn't really copying my P scale, which is cute. As you see, working with particles is fun, kids. I might try this for the color. That might be easier than anything else that I'm doing. So let me try something different. What I've decided to do before I edit the geometry of this, because it did occur to me while I was doing this, then maybe I don't really need to edit this for now and there'll be another way. I am going to put down a point jitter just to see what happens. I may cause Houdini to crash. Save. Probably. I have the love for Houdini to keep doing that, but that looks cool. I don't know about you, but that looks cool. Okay, back to the simulation we go. So I was lazy. You can do this in a point op, but I'm doing this instead. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a Boolean. I'm not going to connect it just yet, but what I am going to do, I'm going to go to a time warp. Time shift. I'm going to go frame. Probably delete the channel. Go 117. You should see something happen. What this is doing is just freezing my simulation. So 117, I think I like better. So now we have a monster type of thing. And it should be frozen. It shouldn't move. This is input 2. So I'm going to go input 1. And I'm going to go back up to my geometry. And Boolean that stuff. This might take a while. Don't be afraid. So as you can see, something's happened, and it's once again created the intersecting geometry, which is kind of cool. And you might see like, oh no, the inside's black, what should I do? So in this case, because it is geometry, I'm going to recorrect my normals once again, just to make sure everything's okay. So now what we have is sort of like this mutated kind of statue that isn't there type of thing, which is really cool in my opinion. But I think we can go one step farther and play around with booleans just a little bit more. So I like this one, and I'm going to go with boolean chip geo. And I'm just going to label that, just so I know where it is. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to create another boolean. I'm probably just going to go right here. If you're buzzing in the background, that's just my phone going off. It's some of my coworkers. We're supposed to meet up later. So once again, it's going to do the same thing, but we are going to create a different effect with our Boolean. I do really enjoy Boolean, as it's a good way, especially if you're modeling, to get different effects really fast with your geometry, instead of doing like an RBD-sim to get some chipped away geo, where you can just instead, float a sphere through a piece of building and then there's a sphere-shaped hole there, instead of just chipping at it away and away and away. So I'm going to switch this over to intersect and see what happens. Probably nothing. Union is going to show both. In this case, that's not really what I want. Shutters, default. Subtract, in this case, put the inside of a geometry on the other one. We can choose A or B. In this case, I'm going to go BA. And once again, I'm going to lay down a normal. And now we have some holes. So it's a good way to, I would say, model this. You could also go back, in this particular case, and go back up to our trail and our file cache that we cached out. Ooh, what do we have here? We have our file cache. What is this? Oh, it's our strands. We can have a moving simulation going through our character now. Pretty cool. We got some wormy action going on. Once again, I'm going to go to my geometry spreadsheet. I'm going to look for my P scale, and we don't have it anymore. Cool, right? So we can use P scale again. Oh my god. If you're wondering why today's video seems a little bit off, or seems off in a way, it's because I was up late last night. VFX work, once you get into it, they say you work 8.5 hours. It's more like 10.5. So I was there for a very long time wrapping something up. It was worth it in the end though. There we go. I'm gonna go copy the points. Now we have some cool geometry that we can visually see. I might delete the color attribute. It's very good to memorize all these attribute nodes and know what they do. They come down handy in the line, down the line. So if we merge this into here, we have some cool stuff going on, right? I would say so. I might cache this out because it is getting a little heavy. I'm going to double check on my particles, see if they give me any more variance. They don't really, so I'm probably just going to delete them. They don't have file cache. Probably go particles together out. Accept, load from disk, save. So you may go back to your scheduler and double check on that. Probably going to take a while, so I'm going to probably check back in on you guys in a little bit. So what we could do while that's caching out is go back over to our statue and do something different. And you probably want to save quite often while you're doing this. Your computer probably will crash. What we are going to do is we are going to unwrap this. And unwrapping and setting up your UVs can be a little bit difficult. But you do need to do this if you would like to texture something. So I'm going to add a UV project, and I'm going to add a UV quick shade just so we can visualize what we're doing to our object. Might take a while, and Houdini might crash, but that's a-okay. And we do have some stretching around the shoulders, so I might change this to polar, which caused more stretching. Cylindrical, perhaps? No. Plastic wrap. That seems to work the best. So let's scale this down. I might also try to do a UV unwrap. In this particular case, I don't think UV project is working the way we would like it to work. But that is our UVs right now. It's not really putting our UVs into our holes there, but it is putting our unwrap on the outside of our object. So we probably do need to change that. And once again, saved off. Save often in this setup because Houdini may not like you, may choose not to like you. And if we look into our holes in our object, we do see some unwrap. It's quite messy. So I might scale that down a little bit more. Maybe hold on. I'm going to save before I do this step. Let's check in on how this is doing. 98% of the way there, that's good. You may notice as it's rendering in the background, your computer will slow down. And that worked a little bit better. I'm not sure if it's better or worse there, but who knows. Might go a little bit lower. That might work. That's definitely going to help unwrap this a little bit more. Save. And if we go down to our file cache, this should be all cached out. Pretty good. I am going to cut this, put this back in. Probably do the same over here. I might time shift this. I'm not sure if this would be a better simulation or model. In this case, I might do a model. And do something crazy, like maybe 160. Cut my quick shade. You might not see anything because this is primitive. And also there's no UV attributes on this. You should be good not to add UVs on particles, but just in case, let's play the devil's advocate and see what happens. UVs also may not work because guess what? We're in a primitive, not a polygon. So we'll just wait for that to cook because Houdini might crash on us. Cool. We have our UV attributes now. That's great. And we'll just let that cook. There we go. And in this case, if I wanted to add a very detailed, like, I don't know, maybe material to this, I'd go for that, but who knows. So I'm going to recache this now that I have more information on my model. Save it to the background. Cool. Go back down to my file cache. Go here. Swish back and forth. But once again, you can see if it was moving, that's what it would be like. And we'll wait till this is somewhat cached. It's still thinking. on what it would like to do, so we'll just sit here and let Houdini think. So now we have 1% done. That's pretty great. It means I can probably not crash, hopefully. Houdini. Wait for Houdini. Booyah, here we go. So there's our beautiful particles. In this case, because everything is geometry, I would recommend physically based rendering, but this is how a basic particle system is built in Houdini. Let's have fun. And let's say I wanted my camera to be right here. Houdini. Okay, it's gonna be one of those days. I probably should have added more particle caches, but in this particular case, I thought I was good. And the reason I turned my my particle system here to polygons is let's say if I wanted to convert it to a polysoup, or merge the polygons together, or warp the shape of my sphere, I could absolutely 100% do that. In this particular case, I'm quite happy the way that it looks like circles. Maybe. I might go back and change that shape. It is slowing down Houdini a little bit. Let me go to my render manager. It's not burning. Okay, we're going to do that again because apparently my computer didn't like me. So what we're going to do is that you may have seen this. I've re-added my lights to the scene, and I've toggled between the surface shading to my lighting setup. And now I've added 2 material nodes. Switch back to this. So I'm going to go to my material palette now and my principal shader. Probably maybe some copper. I'm always fond of that copper color. Gonna add, maybe go a little backwards on this and add my principal shader here. And my copper shader. Now I'm gonna go principal shader here. Copper shader here. Color. Probably ramp from attribute. Maybe we can play with our piece scale a little bit. That looks fun. I like that. Oh, yes, I do. So, what I'm gonna do, if Houdini likes me, is I'm going to go over to my render view, and I'm going to render. And it's upside down for some reason. Fun, Houdini. You're just a joy today, girl. So you may notice that my color and my materials were not transferred in that render. Why? You may ask, well, if you cache something out before you add your materials, they will not appear in your cache. You'll be able to see them in the viewport, but you will not be able to see them in your cache. So always recache if you've done what I've done. Or do it separately with 2 different caches. So we'll just swim back to the merge. We'll let Houdini think it out. I'm once again going to swing my file cache over there. Put my normals there. Recorrect them because we knew after we cached them they weren't correct. Save. OBJ. Hopefully it doesn't render upside down. I've been having that error a little bit with Houdini recently where my renders will appear upside down and I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm going to create a new camera just to see if it's a flaw in the camera. I'm also going to create another distant light. Probably tone that down a bit so the intensity isn't that big. Probably change the color to a light blue. Make my other distant maybe a light yellow. Turn that down a little bit. Render. Once again, Houdini doesn't like me today and is rendering everything upside down. So if you know the error to this or how to get around this error, I'd be gratefully appreciative. This has never happened to me before. So, but anyway, you guys get the general idea. We have our particles. They are coming out of our beautiful character. And that's how you would use a particle system to deform geometry in Houdini. And I hope this lesson has been helpful for you, minus this last part, which I'm going to look into. And if I find the answer out for it before the video, I will certainly put it in the answer of how to fix it into the description. So it was great teaching you all today, and I was hopefully you've enjoyed this lesson and you've learned something from it. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.